everyone. My name is Richard Walker, and today we're going to be talking about a new release from WDS called Great Northern War. Not familiar with that period, you might be saying. Well, rest assured, by the time we're finished here, you will not only be familiar, but aching to grab your musket, put on your tri-pointed hat, and plan your next battle. In today's world, you might be thinking of Sweden as a small Scandinavian country with the city of Stockholm on your list of places to visit as a tourist, as seen here. But that's today's world. Now, if we travel back in time to, say, the 17th and 18th centuries, it was a far different place, as seen here on this map. Sweden was not only a major regional military power, but with an empire that basically managed to surround the Baltic Sea and control large areas of what is today known as Finland, Norway, and the Baltic states of Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia. This era of conquest and the war began at around 1611 and lasted until around 1721. Perhaps we should call this the Second Hundred Years' War. Well, just kidding. So, for the rest of this video, let's focus on the game itself. Like all WDS games, Great Northern War is a historical simulation, and not a first-person shoot-'em-up game. You will not only have a chance to learn from history, but also to be able to participate in its military greatness. But you'll also have a chance to change history. After all, who among us would not want to travel back in time and be the ruler of a vast empire? Now, you may have read even several books on the subject and thought yourself, well, if I had been in charge, I would have defeated all my enemies. So now, as we look at this coat of arms from the Kingdom of Sweden, you'll have your chance to either put up or shut up. You can take the field, marshal your armies, send them into battle, and reap the rewards of victory. But if after a battle or two and you have yet to achieve that victory, well, you merely need to hit new selection and try again. They say that wars are expensive, and in the real world, that is certainly a true statement. But through the magic of WDS, war has been made more than affordable. Buy it once, and you can fight endless battles. So now let's have a look at the game itself. And during this video, we're going to look at and examine the following: the toolbar, the maps, basic gameplay, and the campaigns. But the first thing I want to do right now is show you some of the credits. So, in case you haven't already guessed it, the original developer of this series, called the Musket and Pike series, of which the Great Northern War is the third title in that series, was originally developed by John Tiller. Now, I'm not going to go over all the credits because you can see them in the manual. However, I do want to point out the scenario designers, Rolf Hall and Atle Jensen. I mention these two because, well, they are scenario designers, and as a scenario designer myself, I'm rather biased. Now, back to the game. As you will see, once you have turned the game on and selected it for a new scenario, the first thing that you're going to see is the selection dialog. Now, you'll be able to choose a scenario by simply going to the status and selecting new. You'll choose your mode of play. Most of the time it's going to be normal, play by email, or two-player hot seat. But there's also direct play host and direct play caller. You can read more about those too in the manual. And then you'll pick a scenario. Now, in Great Northern War, there are a total of 68 different scenarios. And we're going to be dealing with one of them that isn't actually on the game you purchase. It's going to be called the video scenario. But before I turn to that, I just wanted to kind of point out that if you look at the descriptions, and don't forget to read the descriptions thoroughly because they do contain valuable information that will help you in your play. So you'll be able to see the scenario briefing, some of the historical background, and what the objectives are in most cases. But for now, let's go to the video scenario, which is something I prepared especially for this video session. And once you have selected it, you'll see that there's 12 turns, and we're going to select OK. Once you select OK, you can pick the mode in which you want to play. Do you want to play against a manual player, or do you want to play some form of the artificial intelligence, henceforth called the AI? Now you'll be able to play against with FOW, which means Fog of War. You'll notice here that there's a slide. Sliding to the Kingdom of Sweden side means the Kingdom of Sweden will have a distinct advantage. Opposite that is the Northern Alliance, and you give them a distinct advantage if you move the slide in their direction. But for our purposes, we're going to leave it at 0. The next thing you would want to do is look over the rules. I'm not going to go over all the rules. If you're a veteran WDS gamer, most of these will look familiar. Pretty much all the WDS games do have a dialogue of optional rules. Once they are selected with the check mark, those rules are in effect. Now, we're not going to go over these rules here, but again, as I've mentioned before, you'll find these in the user manual. So for right now, these are what will come up as your default rules. So, rather than change any of them, we're going to select OK. Now, once we are finished with the optional rules dialog, we come back to the selection and we'll pick OK again. And that's going to open up the scenario with the phase turn box showing that the first turn belongs to the Kingdom of Sweden. We're going to go ahead and put the cursor over that and select it. If you look down at the bottom here, you'll notice that there are times and dates for the game. Now you won't be able to see them on this dialog here because I have lowered the visual that you'll be able to see here. But the first turn in this scenario takes place at 4:30 a.m. on July 8th, 1709. The Kingdom of Sweden has the first turn. It's one of 12. It's a dawn turn with a visibility of 6 hexes. The weather is clear, and you'll be able to fight unencumbered by any kind of weather like rain and such. Now, before we get started by actually moving and firing and assaulting enemy units, I just want to take a brief look at the toolbar. You'll be able to see a more detailed description of the toolbar if you go to the user manual and start with page 97 on the user manual. There are several pages because there's a lot of buttons, and with each button there's also a hotkey. So there's lots of instruction there that'll be able to guide you through the various toolbar buttons. But for this very short survey, let's just take a look at the various categories. You'll notice that if I hit the All button here, all the toolbar buttons are displayed. They are color-coded, as you'll notice here. Now there's 5 subcategories. If I select this first one here called Unit, all the buttons having to do with individual units will be displayed. And again, the same thing with Combat. Those are combat buttons. Report buttons, like for example the Victory dialog, which we'll take a look at here a little bit later. There's the Map dialog, and then there's the Highlight dialog. Now if we look at the map real quick here, you can see here that if I hover over the labels and select it, then the labels that are available on the map will be displayed, such as the various woods and forests, and then you don't see them here, but rivers and roads and cities and so forth. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the game mechanics. But the first thing I want to do here is take off the labels, and next thing I want to do is show you the various maps that we have in the game. Now the current view that we are looking at is the 2D zoom out mode. If I go to my toolbar and select the minus button here for zoom out, and I select it one time, we will go to the extreme zoom out. This is useful if you want a more strategic view of the map. But if we select the plus button, then we'll start zooming in. And then we go back to the original screen that we were just looking at a few moments ago. But if I hit plus again, then you'll see a closer up view of the two-dimensional. If we select it again, then we go to three-dimensional. Now you'll notice here too that we can see the hex outlines. These are important, especially in 3D here, because if you don't have those, then you'll probably waste movement points by moving into the wrong hex. However, just for your visual awareness here, I'm going to unselect it so you can see what it looks like without the hex lines for a few moments. We're going to hit plus one more time, and you can see then that the 3D units have more detail. You can see the actual cannon, you can see the infantry lined up, you can see individual pikes, you can see leader horses, and so on. These flags here, by the way, they represent the objective hexes. If I select one of them and hover over it here, you can see that that particular hex, and on the left-hand side menu, information bar here, you'll see the objective on that particular hex is worth 100 points. Now, the last thing I want to show you on the maps is the jump map. Jump map is very useful because it allows you to see the entirety of the game map, and you'll see it at a very strategic level here. So you can see from this video here that the red outline shows you the part of the map that we're actually looking at in 3D. The blue represents the Kingdom of Sweden units, and the green represents the Northern Alliance. The yellow, by the way, represents the various objective hexes, as we pointed out just a few moments ago. Alright, now with the maps having us taking a look at the maps, let's go ahead and get rid of the dialogues here, and we'll go back to the original 2D zoom out that we were looking at when we first started the game. This is useful because it does show us a good deal of the map, and yet we still see a relatively good strategic area. I'm going to go ahead and put in the hex outline so we can see the hexes more clearly. So, now back to the gameplay. In the first thing that you'll normally do, you'll want to move your units. Now you can move units in column along a road, which is the fastest way to move. You can move them in a straight line, which is called in line of battle. And you can charge with cavalry. Let's take a look at the column movement, for example. So if I select this unit here, on the bottom part of your screen here, I have selected a column of units led by a Colonel Ross in the third column here, and behind him are his various units. If I select them, and you can see they turn out to be a light blue. If I click on them again, it goes to a darker blue, which means they are unselected. Let's go ahead and select them again. I'm going to hold down the left button, move my cursor up a few hexes, and release. And you'll see there that the unit moved very quickly up along this road here, okay? Now, if I hold down the Alt button and do it again, you'll see that all the units associated with that particular order of battle moved in line with the unit in front. And they only stopped when they ran out of movement points, which if you look over on the left-hand menu again, you'll see that the movement is 0 for that front unit. By the way, if I am looking at the information bar and you'll see the first bit of information like 450 men and so on, if I right-click that, then you'll see additional information. For example, this unit is armed with muskets with a range of 2, and so on. The next type of movement I want to demonstrate is moving an entire organization in line of battle at the same time. And I want to first show you and highlight the organization. So on the toolbar, I'm going to select Highlight. Then I'm going to depress where it says Highlight Org. And then I'm going to select in the middle of the map here this particular hex. And you'll see that all the units in that same organization are now highlighted. Now I'm going to move all these units simultaneously by selecting the unit, which you'll notice here they're already selected because I did double click it. Then I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and then I'm going to move it forward and then release. Now you'll notice here that they took opportunity fire from the enemy. Now, if I select the next one to the right, that started out to the right, and hold down the Alt button and move my cursor up a few hexes, then you'll see where they also are attacking the enemy units. Okay, now we're going to demonstrate the attack movement where the entire organization moves simultaneously. So, I'm going to select that middle unit. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and then right-click on the hex in front. And you'll see that they all move simultaneously with one of the units taking opportunity fire. We'll do the same thing again, and you'll notice they all moved in simultaneous movement. Now, one more thing I want to show you is the charge. So let's take a look at these cavalry units, which are red, and you'll notice that they're mounted because the symbols are in that column configuration. So let's go ahead and select it. Now you'll notice that these are cavalry, and they're all in the org. So let's go ahead. I'm going to for the moment here, I'm going to unselect the org so that you don't see them all lit up at the same time. All right, so now we're going to go to the combat on the, well actually we're going to go to unit, I'm sorry. We're going to go to unit. I'm going to select where it says charge. Now look at the left-hand information box. You'll see now where it says charging. So I'm going to right-click, and they're going to be charging towards the Northern Alliance. Now I won't be able to actually charge until I change phases. Let's do the same thing over here. I'm going to hit charge, and we're going to charge again. Okay, here we go. And let's do that again with the left flank. We'll hit charge. One of them became disordered and won't be able to charge, but that's okay. We're going to continue with the ones that can charge here. Now, one thing about charging is that when you initiate the charge, more fatigue is being used by the attacking units, but their attack strength is tripled. Alright, now we're going to show you some of the firing here, but in order for us to do that, we have to change the firing mode. So we go back up to the toolbar. In the upper left-hand corner here, we'll see that there's an icon that says Move /Fire Mode. We're right now in the Move mode. Let's change it over to Fire. Alright, now we're going to change it into Fire. Now for this demonstration, I'm going to go back to the map, and I'm going to zoom into 3D so you can see what it looks like in 3D. So I'm going to fire my cannons here, okay? So here's, I'm going to select my cannon, and then I'm going to move the cursor. They turn into crosshairs. And now I'm going to fire at this unit straight in front of me here, okay? Now watch this. Actually, let me put on the sound effects here so you can actually see the sound effects. So I'm going to fire. Pretty cool, right? I just killed 5 men on the enemy side. Okay, now with that, we're going to go back to the 2D, where we can see things a little bit easier. And now I'm going to change the phase to the melee phase, which I have to go to the next turn icon on the toolbar. So it's going to show me. Oh, we have to save the game first. Okay, so now it's going to say Kingdom of Sweden melee phase. Let's go ahead and select that. Now, let's do a charge. Alright, so we're going to select this cavalry unit. There's 2 of them there. And they're charging with 150 men each. But remember now, they're tripled. So we're going to right-click that unit right in front of us. And it's going to show where there's no prediction, but sometimes it'll say prediction to the attacker or prediction to the defender. But we're going to hit OK, and then we're going to go to combat, and then you'll see where it says resolve. And you can see here that we won the battle. That was a little bit loud here, I think, on the sound effects. So let's go ahead and turn those sound effects off. Alright, now the cool thing about this is if you look in the left-hand menu again, you notice where it says can continue. Can continue means that they can charge yet again. Let's try that. And you'll see that the defender has a strong advantage. We would be unwise in a real game to continue the charge, but let's do it anyway. You can see that we lost badly. The defenders only lost 5, and the attackers lost 13. Let's try capturing this flag here with these guys. Alright, let's go ahead and charge again. See, the advantage goes to the attacker. Let's resolve. Up, and there it goes. Here we were able to capture that flag. And you'll notice now that the flag turns to a Kingdom of Sweden flag, changing from Northern Alliance to the Swedish flag because we have captured it. And if we go to the highlight and, reports, and go to the victory dialog, you'll notice where we have captured 100 points on the objectives. Now, currently it's a draw because the total points are 92, and for the Kingdom of Sweden to win, by the end of the scenario, they have to accumulate 400 points or better. Okay, folks, now we're going to kind of speed things along a little bit here. That was some basic movement and some basic firing in combat. The last thing I want to show you here is the campaign mode. It's a unique feature developed by John Tiller for most of the WDS games. And what it allows you to do is play a campaign of multi-scenarios that could be a few weeks apart, a few months apart, maybe even a few years apart. And the unique thing about this is that one battle will carry losses over to another battle. So how well you do in the first battle may very well determine how well you do in the second, third, and fourth battles, and so on. So if we select New, and then we're going to pick a campaign here. So let's say we pick, say, the Russian campaign, which was from 1708 to 1709. We're going to hit OK, and then it's going to ask us to save the game. So we're going to, or we could change that campaign file to whatever we want, but we're going to go ahead and use it as is. Now, you can play each game one at a time, or if you want to go through them real quick, like you could just pick use expected values. We're going to try that. Now, you don't always have to start at the very first battle if you don't want to. You can start anywhere you want. For our purposes here, let's go ahead and try the Road to Moscow, which is theoretically the second to last battle here. So we're going to click on it, hit OK. Now, we're not actually going to play the scenario. We're only using expected values. So we're just going to see the various blurbs. So, for example, this is the overview map that you see, and the blurb that you can read. Make sure you read it because there is going to be important information. So this is the overview. The next thing you see is a situation, which has additional information you want to see. And then you have the tactical situation. A lot of times you'll have multiple choices. In this particular, there are 2 different choices you can select from. We hit continue. You'll see a game message pop up. You'll hit OK to that. And rather than playing the game, it goes to a draw. And then it goes to conclusion. Because we picked the next to last battle here. But because we didn't play the battle, it simply went to the conclusion screen. So folks, that is pretty much the end of what we're going to discuss during this session here. I do hope you have enjoyed it, and I do hope that you'll purchase the game because it is greatly researched, and I think you will learn a lot from playing it, especially about a subject that you may not have known a lot about to begin with. But before you get finished, you'll be an expert on the Great Northern War. Again, thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it, and you have a great rest of the day.